All right, so I'm going to be going through how to use Node Inspector here. Node Inspector allows you to debug your Node code in a similar way that you would debug your code on the client side, in that it actually gives you the exact same debugging tools that you've gotten used to in the Chrome debugger. The first thing that you're going to need to do in order to set this up is do an npm install on the Node debugger, and then in order to do that, you're going to do npm install -g node inspector. Sorry, so not the node debugger, the node inspector. I've already done that, so I'm not going to take the time to do that right now, but after you install this, you'll have access to the command node inspector. And before you run any of your code, you're actually just going to want to run this, and it will set up the node inspector and get ready to listen. So this right here is going to be what you type into your web browser, and it's going to allow you to do debugging on your Node code. So I have a piece of code that I've been writing. It's an app, and you don't need to know exactly how it works, but I'm going to show you some debugging, and hopefully it'll make some sense. So in order to run your code in debugging mode, you're going to use Node, and then you're going to use the flag --debug, and this is going to allow you to run in debugging mode. And then you're going to actually grab the file that you want. So for me, that's server and then index.js. You'll notice that at the beginning, you see this debugger listening on port 5858. And if I actually go and visit this URL, it's going to give me the node inspector. And if I click on my sources, I find here that all of my files, all of my folders are accessible right now. So one thing that I'd like to do is I have a module called the roles controller, and inside of this it's basically just a get function that is going to return a list of roles. So I'd like to pause in the middle and start examining what these files look like. So I'm going to go into my roles, go into my roles controller, and I'm actually going to put a line break right here, just as you would in the Chrome debugger. I'm then going to go and open up my app, which is now running, and I've got this flag set up. It shows me that the debugger is paused, but if I just go over here, I'll find that the roles that it's actually paused at this line of code because the client sent a GET request and it caught it right here. So I can open up my console similarly to how I would, and I can, for instance, look at the roles. I can see that that's a collection. I can see the data. I can see the objects. I can take a look at them. So this is really useful anytime you're in your code if you want to check your GET requests, your POST requests, look at the data, kind of poke around if something isn't going right, you can take a look at it. One of the things that you may have noticed, though, is that I wasn't able to pause the code as the server was starting, as it was loading up. So let's say I actually wanted to go into the server where everything starts, where my server sets up, and put a pause while the server is setting up. If I try this using the approach that I just took with the debug server index, I'm going to come here, and it's actually disconnected from the server. And if I restart by doing a refresh here, I'll have found that it's actually skipped over this line of code. So it ran the server, it started everything up before it was actually able to do a line break. So if you want to debug your code before the server actually starts, if you want to look at Express, if you want to look at the things that you're injecting into Express, you're going to do something slightly different. You're going to do node --debug -brk. And what that's going to do is it's going to stop your code right at the beginning before any of the Express starts up, before you start setting up routes, anything like that, and it's going to allow you to debug it. So if I start this and then go back to my node inspector, hit refresh, I'll actually found that it has stopped right on the first line of code. So then I can, for instance, put a line break in the first part of my server phase, press play, and then it'll stop there. And then I can do things that, I can do anything that I normally would be able to do with the inspector. Like I can look up what the current directory name is. Here's my directory. I can put a line break here and make sure that my process.env files are correct. Looks like it's going to take a second to get there. There we go. So process.env.port, and make sure that that's what I expect it to be. So this allows you to poke around at the very beginning of an initialization of a node server. So those are the two approaches. Just to recap, one approach is node-debug and then the name of your file, and the other is node-debug-brk, and that's going to allow you to break right at the beginning. Hopefully this is helpful. It should allow you to use the node debugger whenever you might otherwise use console log or something else to gain access to the inside of your node files, and I find that it's very helpful to be able to use the debugger tools as an alternative. Thanks.